Hey everybody, I'm Michael Bungay Stainer, known to many as MBS. I am the author of a number of books. My two best known, I think, are probably this one, The Coaching Habit, and this one, The Advice Trap. And my goal in life is to make sure that you do not regret a life half lived. I want you to have the confidence to defy complacency, to make a better world, whether that's in Guatemala or beyond, and to be the best version of yourself. And I'm excited to talk to you today, to talk to you a little bit about this and a tool that I think might help you with this. Now, if you're wondering where I am, I'm actually in quarantine at the moment in Sydney, Australia. I live in Toronto, Canada, but I am Australian by birth. And I wanted to come down and make sure my parents were okay. They're getting a little older. So I flew down here. I have to spend 14 days in a hotel room. I've been locked in. So you're lucky you're getting to talk to me before I go completely mad after 14 days locked in a hotel room. But let me talk to you about how do you be the best version of yourself? Because if you're a little bit like me, you've had moments where you've thought, I'm not sure this is the best version of me showing up in the world, or how do I have the courage to fully express who I am? How do I be brave enough to show up and turn the volume of who you are up to 10 or 11 out of 10, so you get to be yourself fully and the whole world gets to see you and appreciate you for the talented, wonderful, creative, courageous, smart, audacious person that I'm sure you are. So I'm going to share a tool that I use. It actually comes from an earlier book of mine, a book I wrote called Do More Great Work. And it's called This, Not That. This, Not That. And I use it all the time. I still use it today as a way of reminding myself how to be the best version of myself. And what it looks like is a list of 5 or 6 or 7 pairs of words, combinations of words that explain what I'm like at my best and what I'm like when I'm not quite at my best. Not when you're failing, not when you're kind of down in the dumps, but when you're, let's say, 10% not yourself, 10% off your game, when you can feel yourself playing small rather than playing big, when you feel yourself shrinking rather than stepping forward into the light. And I'm going to show you how I built mine, and I'm going to encourage you to think about perhaps building one for yourself. So here's what I do. I'm going to do this in front of you. I've got a scrap of paper I found in the recycling bin. I've got my pen. And step number 1, I'll do it this way. It's just to draw a line right down the center. So there we go. There's my line right down the center. And I'm going to write along the top of it, this, not that. This, not that. Of course, you can write that in Spanish or whatever language you want. I'm an English speaker, so this, not that. Now, the origin for this was actually when I used to work in the world of creativity and innovation and kind of brand building. And I would be talking to people about a particular brand or a particular product, and I was like, how do you think about this? And people would really struggle to have the words to describe what they were trying to tell me about how they felt about a product. So we came up with this idea called This, Not That, where I asked them to use words or metaphors to explain what it was and also what it wasn't. So I go, okay, I'm trying to invent a new type of car. And people would go, okay, the car is the car I want. I want it to be like Smirnoff vodka, not some type of bourbon. I want it to be about Prada, not about Gap. I want it to be bright red, not silky blue. I want it to feel warm and inviting, not cold and distant. And you can see that I'm using different pairs of words and different metaphors and sometimes other brands even to describe what I want to be more like and what I want it to be not like. And somehow using those combinations makes it easier to really understand what you're trying to be at your best. And one of the challenges that we have when we think about ourselves and how we show up in the world is to find our own language to be the best version of ourselves. And sometimes it gets reduced down to like values and single word values, like I want to have integrity, or I want to be honest, or I want to be audacious, or whatever the word might be. And I find those words are hard to act on. I didn't really know what to do with those once I defined those words. So this pairing of words is what I use to help me navigate my life so I get to show up as the best version of myself. So what I do is I start off by thinking back to peak moments in my life, real high points, moments where I felt, that time I was a best version of Michael. I really showed up and I had a lot of fun. So I would think back to spending some time with my friend Jason, who lives down in Melbourne here in Australia, and who hopefully I'll see a bit later on in this visit to Australia. And we spent a day recording podcasts and doing other things together, and I loved it, and I laughed, and it was a joyful experience. And if I had to sum up that experience, that sense of lightness and joy and laughter was a key part of it. So I might pick one of those words and I go, okay, this, and I'm going to write down the word laughter. There you go, there's this. But what makes this tool really powerful and really helpful is when you think about what's it like when you're slightly off your game, when you're slightly not that, but just not terrible, not failure, but just a reduced version of that. And what I notice about myself is that when I'm not in laughter mode, when I'm not joyful, and I'm kind of, it's okay, but it's not great, I tend to sit with my lips together, and I have a bit of a serious resting face. I look a bit grumpy, a little bit angry, sometimes people say. And I'm not angry, I'm just kind of not joyful. And so, but what's helpful for me is to understand when I write down the word grumpy, which is like a word meaning kind of like a little bit angry, I'm like, oh, I know what I look like. I know how I feel in my body when I'm grumpy. So, okay, so there's my first pair. Laughter, grumpy. I want this, I want laughter, I don't want grumpy. Okay, that's really helpful. Then I think to another time. I think to a time when I was like starting to write one of my books. And it was such a fun time because I was doing all this reading and I was doing all this exploring. And I was finding writers and podcasts and TED Talks that I'd never seen before. I had light bulbs and fireworks going off in my head. It was fantastic. And if I had to find a single word for that, I'd go, oh, it's curious. I was really in curious mode. And I want more of that. That's me at my best, is when I'm being curious. And then I think to myself, what am I like when I not like that? And I think to myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's that time I was talking to my friend and she was telling me something, but I stopped listening to her. I was a bit bored by it. I was kind of going, oh yeah, I was pretending I was listening, but I already had the answer in my head. And I was just waiting for her to stop talking so that I could actually tell her what I wanted to tell her, give her my advice. And I'm like, oh, that's not me at my best. When I'm in a know-it-all mode, I'm definitely not performing the way I want to perform it. And that's the pairing word that goes with it. Know-it-all. So now I've got two pairs of words, laughter and grumpy, and curious and know-it-all. So when I'm at my best, I have laughter and curiosity. When I'm slightly off my game, when I'm not really performing the way I want, I'm slightly grumpy and I'm slightly know-it-all. And then I think, okay, let's come up with another pair of words. And things I love is I love being on stage, I love presenting, I love facilitating to people. And when I really enjoy it, I'm being provocative. I'm teasing people, I'm pushing people, I'm challenging people. I'm making them kind of sit back a bit and go, wait, what's going on here? And I'm like, oh, there's a good word for me, provocative. So I'm going to write that down, provocative. And you can see that I'm going, but what's the matching word? Because these things only really get their power when you have pairs, combinations together. And what I notice is I'm definitely not at my best when I feel like I have to follow the rules all the time. I'm not allowed to express myself, I'm not allowed to challenge, I'm not allowed to tease, I'm not allowed to have any fun. I have to be compliant. And there we go, there's the word that matches that, compliant. So now I've got 3 different pairs of words that express patterns of behavior. One is a type of me that I want more of. This is me at my best. This is when you get Michael the way you want Michael and the way Michael wants Michael in the world. I've got laughter, I've got curiosity, and I'm provocative. Those are all 3 important words for me. And then I've got words that tell me what I'm like when I'm off my game, when I'm not myself. I've got grumpy, I've got know-it-all, I've got compliant. So that feels very powerful immediately. Here's how I use this tool. It might be helpful for you as well. When I am getting ready to do something, I might be meeting somebody for the first time, I might be giving a speech, I might be struggling and trying to be creative and I'm finding it difficult. What I start doing is I start noticing that something's not quite right. I'm like, I'm feeling frustrated about it. And what I do is I go to my list and I try and diagnose myself on this side. It's like, how am I showing up? Oh, I'm being kind of compliant. Like I feel like I have to follow the rules, and it's sucking a bit of the joy out of my life. And then I go, well, if I'm being compliant, how do I want to be? Well, I want to be provocative. I want to be a bit edgy, a bit spiky, to push people a little bit. So it helps me understand where I need to get back to be the best version of myself. Now, of course, you're welcome to steal any of my words in any combination that you like, but the power of this tool is really when you do the work for yourself. When you go, okay, what am I like at my best? And think of some stories and think of some moments from your past where you're like, oh, I loved that moment. I loved being who I was. I loved showing up as the best version of myself in that time. And try and find the right language to do that. Sometimes it's singular words like I've got here. Sometimes it's a metaphor. Sometimes it can come from a story. I'll tell you one of the things I didn't mention but is on my list. There was a time when I went to law school about 30 years ago, and we did a performance, and a friend of mine and I did this skit, as we call it, a short little act called Synchronized Nude Male Modeling. If you've ever seen the Olympics and you've seen synchronized swimming where you've got teams of people and they're all performing in the water together, we were doing a funny version of that. So it was me and my friend Simon, and we backed onto stage together, and we were naked and we went through some motions together, and then we backed off again. And just thinking of that moment, it was this moment of excitement and provocation and drama and theater and pushing my edges, and I'm like, oh, I want to feel like that more often. So I actually have that, naked on stage, as another one of my one of the words in another pair. So you may use a metaphor, you may use a single word, you may use a color, you may use a description, whatever works for you. But find these pairs of words and then start using them so that whenever you fall off the rails, whenever you go a bit soft, whenever you find yourself small and playing a small game, whenever you're not being the person you want to be, you can remind yourself, what does it take to get back to the other side of the list so you can show up exactly how you want. I hope that tool was helpful for you. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I've never been to Guatemala. It's on my list of places to get to. As soon as this travel ban is lifted, I'm going to be heading and seeing if I can spend some time in your beautiful country. I'm Michael Bungay Stainer, known as MBS. You can find out more about me and the work I do at mbs.works. Thank you.